A Mexican general decides to take back the Alamo on Washington's birthday, and then he decides to leave. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it, folks. This one hurt. It's the 1969 film Viva Max, starring Peter Ustinov, John Astin, Jonathan Winters, and Harry Morgan. Buckle in, folks. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. This week on Movie Bones.
Those of y'all who attend the cinema will recognize this. It's a scene from the motion picture made about the Alamo some years ago, and Mr. John Wayne portrayed Davy Crockett, and Jim Bowie was played by Mr. Richard Widmark. This way, please. Right out here. We'll try to recreate the scene for you. Right here, this is where Colonel Travis is said to have drawn his famous line. Now, on the night before the last battle, Colonel Travis assembled all the men, and he drew this line with his sword. And he said that any of them who wished to try to escape should just step out of ranks and cross this line. And you know, not one man did. Well, you just think about that. You think about that. Now, it is dawn. In the distance, the band of Santa Anna's army begins playing the Degayo. The men of the Alamo know what this music means. It means no quarter will be given. No prisoners will be taken. Every man will die.
How appropriate that she mentioned about giving no quarter, because I will give no quarter to this movie. This movie sucks. It hurt me. 7 minutes in, and I was already thinking the Han Solo line. Oh, I got a bad feeling about this one. It broke me, and it didn't just break me once. It broke me over and over and over again. And in my mind, you know how in those prison films you have the prisoner, they have little marks on the wall for how many days they've been in? I was doing that for every time the film broke me. And I think it was about 2/3 of the way through, my mind started to chalk up another line, and it never let up. The line just kept getting drawn from then on out. I just stopped counting. It was just one long break at the end. So many of the scenes are just inane. You have racism, of course. You have yuck jingoism, scenes that go absolutely nowhere and do absolutely nothing. And I'm telling you, man, you described to me last week we talked about what our expectations for this. We just saw the one byline. It said about he was doing this. General Max, who is trying to take back the Alamo from Mexico, is doing this because of a girlfriend back in Mexico he's trying to impress. When I was making the episodes this morning, I had to hunt for the part of the movie that actually described that. Because I couldn't find it the first watch. Did you?
No, I did not. In fact, I honestly started thinking that because, sometimes things go wrong on Tubi. We love Tubi. Tubi sponsor us eventually.
Yeah.
But we do love Tubi. I thought maybe it was... Honestly, I thought maybe it just had to... maybe he just fell for the blonde-haired girl who was the radical. I don't really know what you would call her. I thought maybe that was, ultimately about her, trying to impress her, but I'm still not entirely sure what movie we're watching.
It was... I did have to go back and look. There is a part where he's talking to her, and they're talking about his motivations, and it just kind of starts to hint at something being like there is a dark-haired woman back in Mexico he's trying to impress, and then the scene just ends. And that's it. That's it. And it's not even a fully fledged thought. It's just in the general vicinity, maybe possibly of a thought. But because there's so much going on, my brain was numb. Was your brain numb? I mean, it was like Novocaine.
It was bad. I'm not sugarcoating this at all, folks. I'm not disagreeing with him on his feelings. It was so bad that my brain did turn off. I flushed this movie. Beyond all, there's 2 movies now in my life that I'm kind of sad that I wasted my time watching. This is one of those movies.
Am I responsible is Movie Bones responsible for the other one too? I have to ask.
No, actually it's not. The other movie is a not late 2000s, but it's a mid 2000s movie. It's one of those parody movies. So you remember, have you ever seen the movies real quick? Have you ever seen the movies Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, any of those movies?
I have not seen any of them. I am most familiar with the 40-Year-Old Virgin just from scenes and clips that I've seen of him
Okay, so
of
there
Steve
is
Carell
a-
getting his back, waxed or something like
There
that.
is a parody movie of all these like Judd Apatow movies, which these are all Judd Apatow movies. There's a parody movie called The 41-Year-Old Virgin, who knocked up Sarah Marshall and felt super bad about it. I watched that movie for 20 minutes and
did.
I got up and I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And it's honestly 20 minutes of my life that I'm really sad that I can't get back.
I hope
We're
he didn't
close.
pay money for that. I hope he didn't pay money for that.
No, I didn't, thankfully.
Oh, thank goodness.
We're in that same territory of like, I can't get the time back that I watched this movie, Viva Max. I'll tell you two of the reasons why this movie upset me so badly. And that is the way that these characters are not portrayed, but you have two great, in my opinion, character actors in Peter Ustinov, who was great in Top Copy. Is that what we watched him in?
Top Copy.
I thought his character was great in that movie. John Astin, I've seen him in different things. Also a great, he famously plays Gomez.
Yeah, from the original Addams Family, yeah.
Yeah, great in that as well. But they were just so, I don't know, unless somehow I'm wrong, they were just so bland.
I don't know about John Astin, but I know that Peter Ustinov is not an improv guy that I'm aware of. Some actors come out of improv comedy, or they have the ability to improv, and they come out of that wing of acting. There's different schools of acting thought. They have some things in common usually, but there's a starting point that's different. And some actors, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head right now, but if you think of maybe like a Tina Fey, someone who's been on Saturday Night Live, they do bigger movies eventually. They came out of a more improv class of school. I don't see Peter Ustinov being like that. I don't know about John Astin. Jonathan Winters is the closest what I would think of to someone who's got that kind of comedy-ish background. He did stand-up comedy, if I'm not mistaken. And you can see in his scenes, at least, he's trying to do improv with it, because I don't think, that leads me to my next point, which is I don't think there's a script with this film. And I'm just going to play something right now. Hold on a second.
Couldn't you block off the streets? What, and ruin our downtown business? While we're having our big George Washington birthday sale tomorrow.
If this leaks out, every smart aleck comic on television will have a field day. They just love giving it to us. Well, can't you come up with something?
Wait a minute. I've got an idea.
What?
Why don't we turn off their electricity?
Now, what the hell good would that do?
Well, when you want to evict someone, you always turn off their electricity, don't you? Maybe we could drop leaflets in Spanish, asking them to give themselves up.
Leaflets take too long to make.
Well, maybe we could get them Xeroxed.
Maybe we could set up some big public address system amplified.
Get someone with sort of a sexy voice, kind of a Alamo room.
Wait a minute.
You can hear that Jonathan Winters is kind of trying to pull some kind of an improv-like humor out of it. But even if you're doing that, the director has to have some vision of where the scene's got to go, where some material movement in the plot or character, something. And there's none of that here. So it's just like bad improv. It goes flat.
And you want to know something? A lot of this movie, these two scenes that you've just shown are a big issue in this movie for me. And that is, we're getting a lot more exposition than we, yes, it's funny. This is what we could do. Why don't you just actually have them doing it? Wouldn't that be more funny? Wouldn't that be more hilarious to watch them actually decide, all right, this is what we're doing now, and then see if it works and everything. And you just have these in succession comedic things to try to do what they're trying to do. And it'd be way more funny to see it and then be instead of having them sit around going, what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? There's two scenes in this movie that made me go, oh boy. The first one was how he gets the clothing he's wearing. When that family is I hated all three of those characters.
I hated it with a passion.
And it doesn't even last that long. But I'm those three characters at the very beginning that they're in the family. It's and there's, I don't know why, but I'm God, this is the most stereotypical 60s kid ever, for one. And it's his annoying parents. And then, yes, the scene that you showed before, or the scene that you actually played before this one, it's you actually get a legitimate history lesson.
Yeah.
And I'm and honestly, I was did they just go in there and film it? Just legitimately film a history lesson, on purpose? And I was bored. I was bored out of my mind. I love history, but I was I'm not watching a movie for this. But it's again, just show us what happened. And you can make it even kind of funny in its own funny way, and its own way. Even though it was not a funny event, it's a slapstick comedy movie. Make it a funny movie, or make it a funny history lesson.
Did the city of San Antonio give like permits to you to film there? So you could like show off the Alamo and attract people and tourism dollars to San Antonio in still kind of a jingoistic way. It's like in portraying the Alamo, because let's face it, folks, the situation in Texas and the Alamo is a little more complicated than the Texan version of the story goes. But if the movie has one redeeming quality, I will say this: it's very easily forgotten. If I hadn't had to like do the prep work for the episode this morning and had watching clips, drilling some things into my brain a little bit harder, then I would have forgotten even more than I already have. It is that much because of those scenes. Like I said, it's like none of it feels planned, or it's like you said, people are describing things, and it's like, here's what I was going to say. Imagine Jonathan Winters from It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Instead of actually going through and doing the action part of the scene where he's destroying that garage, if he had a scene before that where he described what he was going to do. And that's the scene. And it's like, well, that's the problem, isn't it? It's like you're being describing all these things that, well, maybe in theory some of it could have been fun. I really don't know. They didn't even describe it well, to be honest with you. Even that part didn't intrigue me. But it's like I had a hard time keeping track of just where I was in time and space for a while. It's like I spent some of the time I just was looking at my wife. Just kind of looking at her and looking at me, her looking at me. And so I probably missed some visual cues, if there were any visual cues in a movie like this. I think she even said to me at one point, it's like, this movie makes me want to eat Spam. And I hate Spam. And I said, well, I got no arguments there. I mean, yeah.
At first, I wondered if maybe I hated this movie more because of the quality of the film. For those of you that don't know, and again, I'm not knocking Tubi for this, but this is one thing that kind of makes Tubi so great. In its own way, is like, I think there's like the ability to upload your own, like upload movies to Tubi.
Really? I did not know this.
I feel like I've heard that before. You know what? While I'm saying it, I'm going to check.
If I was putting together evidence to support the theory of an urban legend surrounding that you could upload your own movies to Tubi, this would be the one. Did you notice there was a kind of like a VHS tape to this?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that just made me be like, ugh.
It's got that lo-fi sound from age you get from like a tape that's been sitting around too long. It's got the slight distortions at the bottom of the image, and it almost feels like this could have been a transfer from a tape that I'm going to speculate was at the bottom of a bargain basement sell-off bin, like in a going out of business at a Blockbuster sale or something. And now that building's probably a Chipotle or something, and the story there is probably more interesting than the one that we just watched. But it feels like it's like, you can tell not many people must have watched it, or because used tape has more glitches. But there were glitches, and it's like no one bought this tape, I'm betting. And it just got stuck at the bottom of a bin. Someone bought it for $1 or less at a going out of business sale. And I'm betting it's like, oh, Tubi's can do this, and well, yeah, sure, you can upload it. That sounds like a plausible conspiracy theory to me. And you know me, folks, I do not go in for conspiracy theories.
That's the thing, like, I've heard people talk about it before, and like that's why some movies that you can find are really quite maybe literally just, VHS rips and everything. Now, again, I'm not entirely sure, but when I was watching this film, like I said, I was like, this is bad. Like, this is like, the quality of this is just terrible. And it was hard to listen to. Like I was telling Justin before we started this, it was hard to listen to, and I didn't want to turn it up too much more, because then I knew like that there's that extra sound that you're hearing, and I would have hated it even more. But I don't think I can give the movie the benefit of the doubt. I just did not vibe with the characters. I didn't find really anything that they were doing or saying to be that funny. And, on top of that, just the quality of the film, it looked bad and it sounded bad. It was just made the experience that much worse.
As soon as we got to like the border crossing, it sounded like they got guys from like Tennessee or something there's like a Tennessee, like an exaggerated Tennessee or a Southern accent, not even a Texan one for the border guards. That was embarrassing too. It's all around embarrassing. By the time I got that far, I mean, that's not far in, I'm like, no, it's not it's the quality of the film. It's just everything. And this is what I'm in for now. This is what I'm going to be in for the next hour and a half. And did you notice they had in the opening credits, they actually had a thing about all the characters are fictional except for David Bowie. David Bowie, Jim Bowie. Sorry, my apologies. Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett and a couple of, and what is it? John Wayne, and the other actor who's in that movie that they talked about in the clip I played earlier. The ones who they reference this other movie about the Alamo, and those actors don't even show up in this movie. But because they used the name drop, I guess, they felt the need to tell the audience, folks, there's people we talk about in this movie. Some of them are real people, but others are fictitious. So just so you know, in case you couldn't figure that out, and you have absolutely nothing about history in America, even though I'm sure no one outside of this country is ever going to watch this film. And then they put it up front. I'm like, well, that's an odd point of carefulness for a movie that otherwise seems to have almost no scruples about anything else.
Yeah, and you want to know something? Like, I'm going to talk about the story just real quick. So, for those of you who don't know, the story, and you shouldn't know, just don't go watch this movie. Anyways, the story involves a general who, like we've already said, is trying to impress someone, and so he marches a regiment of his army, of the Mexican army. They think they're going to a parade, but he marches them into America to retake the Alamo. Again, they don't know they're retaking the Alamo quite yet, but that's the general plan and everything. And our main characters, or some of our main characters, John Astin, who plays a sergeant, Peter Ustinov, who plays Max and everything. Peter Ustinov is a British man, and he's very much colored in this movie. And when I say colored, like his hair is dyed, you could tell he put some kind of tanning stuff on him because he's got darker skin. He's made to look more Hispanic and everything, so we're not really going to get into the politics of that, but we don't really, we both agree that that's not something that we think should be done.
This is bad news, guys. Yeah. Shouldn't be done.
But you don't even, here's the thing. You didn't even have to go that far. You could have reworked this film, give it a more of a zany take on it, or an actually good zany take on it, in my opinion. What if he was just trying to impress a Hispanic woman he met in Mexico?
Yeah.
And one way he thought to impress her, maybe she gave this off-colored, she just gave this, what it meant to her was the throwaway line of retake the Alamo, ah ha ha. But he took it seriously and was like, as a British man, he was going to retake the Alamo on behalf of Mexico. And you could have even had Mexico at some point in the movie being like, you know what, we're not against this, we're not really for this, but we're not it's like, hey guy, we feel you, man.
And you're selling me. You're selling me right now. You're selling me.
You could have had him be more of himself, and he could have stumbled his way into it because, one big part of this film is that they don't super take him seriously, and that's kind of the funnier thing is when someone continuously is not taken seriously, stumbles their way into victory and everything.
Yeah.
And that's would have made that film just so much better. And you could have even had John Astin's character be someone else, maybe his dim-witted friend who helps him along the way, and they just both keep winning because no one keeps taking them seriously.
Yeah.
And you could have put Jonathan Winters, because his character was he was a salesman or something like that?
No, he was a soldier. He's like an Air Force. He's dressed more like an Air Force colonel or something, but he's dressed in Air Force, what I would say Air Force garb, But
I thought he was had a different kind of job already. I don't know.
No, but that's the thing is, how could you go through a whole movie? He was in more than one scene. I remember him visually more in one scene, more than just one scene. But he is a. But like you said, anyways,
you could have had him. You could have had him being the lowest ranked man, the person that no one cares about. That's another thing. It's we're just going to send him to deal with this because we have to. And it's just they keep this is this fun little cat and mouse game where all three of these people just continuously screw up, make matters slightly worse in a comedic way until you actually have an almost comedically brought up incident between the United States and Mexico.
It could have been it could have been the subject of an article on Cracked, if you're familiar with cracked.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been something that you would actually have read about a historical incident that was really wacky and could have happened. But what you've just described to me sold me on the potential of someone taking a similar idea and making something that's actually not just funny, but actually maybe socially poignant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Why is the man's name, who you say multiple times, never in this movie?
The man who's
John
named...
Wayne.
Uh,
Not even a cameo of
No.
any sort.
I mean, does he get paid for having his name mentioned in the movie?
I have zero clue. But again, what would have been hilarious? That whole situation with the secret password and everything. Wouldn't it have been funny if John Wayne just showed up and said his name was John Wayne and nobody believed him?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's already... How can we be better writers than this? We're not professional writers, folks.
I mean, it's wild. Movies that we have watched, we have found the one that we both agree is the worst one.
And that brings us to verdicts, I think, because really there's not much else we can say about this. It's not going to just rehash what we've already said. There's just not enough there. So my verdict, man, the only thing I was torn between, and this has to do with the racist stuff and the kind of, they even talk about I think Harry Morgan's character talks about, they're molesting our women. And it's which is also a thing it's a stereotype now that's sadly being reemployed. But it's the only reason I could not go full on kill it with fire was because it wasn't, there's just not enough story there to attach it to say that that's what the mission of the movie was, or it wasn't core to the, whatever story it was trying to tell, if you can even say there was one, that it actually would pound it home as if the offending part is closely tied to the artistic part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's when I start to kill it with fire, because there's certain intentions there. That was only absent, I think, perhaps, maybe by luck, because the movie was too incompetent to actually pull its pieces together to actually tell any story. So, but for that, I'm going to give it a don't look at it. But it did make my head explode several times, and I really wanted to give a kill it with fire. I debated it for a long time. But how about you, man?
Well, see, movies like that you're talking about, the Kill It With Fire, that's movies that give us emotion of some sort. This doesn't give us emotion. We're going to forget that we watched this movie in about
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Honestly, we might forget. We really, truly might forget that we watched this movie in a year. Not so much that it's going to be oh, let's retry this again. No, I think we'll just absolutely just forget this movie because our brains want to dump it. Because it's not a good movie. It doesn't do service to its characters. It doesn't do, or not the characters, to its actors. It doesn't do service to the plot. Nothing about this movie translates. I actually went and looked up reviews. I don't lie. It does have some sort of favorable reviews, but none of them are, most of them are just, it was a movie. Which means to me that more of the people that watch it, they're not coming out of this movie, I'm angry with this movie. More of the people that watched it, and when it came out and were it was a movie. It's certainly a movie that was made at some point, and they've just forgotten about the movie.
Yeah.
Which in some ways is a worse rating than Kill It With Fire. I'll give a brand new one-time rating for me, and this is just so forgettable that I give you no actual rating because you were that forgettable.
It was just, you have to actually remember the movie to be able to give it a rating.
Yeah.
Longer than it takes. I'm just telling you, I'm really glad yesterday was not my Groundhog Day. That's all I can say.
Imagine you had to rewatch this movie every day with the...
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, folks, at this time, we'd like to remind the listening audience out there that if you're having fun, and I do use that word loosely in context of this week's movie, that we do encourage you to like, subscribe, comment, and of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice. Ryan and I would love to hear suggestions from you guys. And, tell us if we got it all wrong, because we can be wrong too. And on the note of actually moving along to next week's movie, which, what do we have for next week? Hopefully something better, I pray.
I mean, we've got two great actors in this film, but
I mean, it's already got one that I have sworn up, not up and down, but I've sworn that I said he could elevate anything that he's in. So I'm going to hope he doesn't let me down here.
Next week, we have a gory sounding film. I'm not going to say it's as gory as it sounds, but is a film directed by Robert Day. Tubi says, and we now know, again, we love you, Tubi, but maybe we don't trust everything Tubi says. Dr. Thomas Bolton uses himself as a human guinea pig for surgical anesthesia and subsequently falls into a ghastly addiction. Movie starring Boris Karloff the great Boris Karloff and the great Christopher Lee. I'm excited about a younger role for him.
Before he became Sir Christopher Lee, yeah.
Yes.
He was knighted, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I am super excited about a younger version of him in a film. He's great in everything he does. He puts his all in there, everything he does. So even if I hate the film itself, I'm going to probably go ahead and praise his acting in this film. But this movie is titled Corridors of Blood.
Yeah, 2 horror icons too. That should be interesting. Hopefully it will be. So, but anyway, folks, I can't think of anything else to say. And, but please do join us for watching Corridors of Blood next week. And in any case, we'll see you guys next week. And Ryan, I'll see you next week.
What movie did we just watch?
Yeah.
You see?
You see, folks? You see? Maybe it's not all that bad at all. Except it was. Anyway, folks, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.
Cut that out. Come on. What's the matter with you? Catch him playing with that rubber bird. Doggone it, man. Be serious.